I guess we'll get started. I'll call to order this special council meeting for the town of Saugeen Shores. We have two in the audience, so welcome those people in the audience. Thank you for coming out. The next order is a declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll remind you of your responsibility to do so. You can do so now or when we discuss the one item. Not. The next item on the agenda then is a report. Nothing under. The next item is item 5. It's a report of municipal officers and committees, and it's an information report on land acquisition motion. And I guess our CAO is going to present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't intend to go through this verbatim, but based on the direction we've received the last time this topic was discussed around the council table, what the senior staff group did essentially was sit down and review together where we collectively thought there was the basis to identify the potential to acquire land. And this report tries to cover that from a variety of perspectives. And obviously we started with the official plan, and we did include in here a couple of the goals and objectives that relate to that purpose. We then moved on to the Parks and Trails Master Plan and identified a couple of the more detailed technical reports that also talk about in one way, shape, or form the potential where land acquisition might occur as part of providing the programs that were identified in those documents. We point out at the bottom of page 2 that there's a capital works program that council sees each year in draft form that gets shifted around a little bit depending on the priorities for the current year. And there's clearly in that document the contemplation of acquisition for property in the downtown cores of Port Elgin and Southampton for parking purposes. That is reflected as well in the town's DC study, where there is some allocation for that purpose for future growth, and those projects are clearly set out in there. In terms of further planning documents, there are a couple that have more narrow focus, and those are the CIPs and the streetscape studies that currently, in terms of Southampton, under review. So, in addition to that, what we tried to provide at the end of the report was an indication of what communities might want to do if they wanted to be a little bit more explicit, and I provided a couple of examples of those on the bottom of page 3. And then moving to the end of the document, we tried to show how there are processes and what the staff role would be, and how we might acquire land through processes other than what we've described in here. And we do indicate at the bottom that typically there would be a budget allocation for this purpose. It's something that council would have formally approved. But I'd certainly be prepared to answer questions if there are any in this respect.
So I'm not so sure it's a question, Mr. Mayor, if you allow me to discuss some complementary considerations for why we would do these things, why we would purchase. So I looked at a lot of other documents and some of the key words, and I wrote them down so that I wouldn't mess them up. And clearly we know that downtown areas play a significant role in supporting a community by reflecting their prosperity, image, and pride, and they represent heritage and the heart of a community. When we create or build on a successful and thriving downtown, we can promote a positive image of this area and community, and therefore establish it as a destination for tourism with spin-off effects. So all these things play into this. Creating community meeting places, social meeting places, can enhance the surrounding areas and provide a feeling of community pride. So when we talked about purchasing land, for me it wasn't just about parking, it was about other ideas. An active and an attractive downtown leave residents and tourists with positive feelings about the municipality. So we have an opportunity. We could showcase more strong arts and culture and cultural and family events and festivals when we look at a strategic piece of property, which I believe this particular piece is. Excuse me. It is often stated that downtowns will thrive and bustle when there is a dynamic interchange between public space and commercial activity. Maintaining healthy and vibrant downtowns is an investment in the future of the community. So we can invest in our own communities, and I think that's my point. So we have downtown streetscape master plans, which include plaza concepts and speaks to an area known as an important downtown junction, and one that could support a large gathering courtyard, could be used for community and shoulder season events. The Ontario Planning Act allows us to acquire, hold, clear, grade, or otherwise prepare land for community use. And our County of Bruce official plan also talks about encouraging each municipality, as you mentioned, Larry, with these CIPs, community improvement plans. The community improvement plans talk to improvement of which, in the opinion of council, is desirable because of age, dilapidation, overcrowding, or faulty arrangement. Unsuitability of buildings. Well, clearly this piece of property has many of those attributes going for it, in my opinion. Project areas can range from specific properties. This is what the Planning Act says, and we can look at specific properties, to streets, neighborhoods, and entire communities. The objectives of CIPs are used as a tool to establish a sense of place based on the noted strengths and identity of an area, to make the local community successful and realize the available economic and social benefits. This would include marketing and promoting strategies to make it a destination. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about creating memorials, statues, gardens, fountains. Taking down a building can add to regional safety and security. We could take down a building on a piece of property, and then the parking space inventory, if we wanted to use it for parking, or we can contribute to a well-connected pedestrian environment by enabling shortcuts to the main street from parking areas. And it could act as a future effective public transportation terminus. So other communities are looking for these very pieces of property for future use and future needs. And finally, I'd like to say that I have two other points. This new publicly owned space could support a bike share or electric car program where you could pick up a bicycle or a car, drive from one town to the other and back. And sometimes, if you wanted to advance the beautification of an area, and one comes to mind in downtown Port Elgin, where I've been talking about this for some time, we're trying to do the streetscape plan in downtown Port Elgin, and we have pretty much an eyesore of leftover 1900s West Stereo power poles with transformers on them, and it's not working. So you can actually purchase a piece of property for the installation of an underground service, such as an electrical transformer. Land acquisition such as this provides for these outcomes. Thank you.
Further comments? Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder, with regard to the potential acquisition of land for the purpose of parking, which is something that you identified, which has been identified in a number of documents as a priority in our downtown core areas. Do we have a standard, or is the administration operating with a standard whereby a total development cost per space, there's an acceptable threshold and or a threshold over which it becomes unacceptable? I don't know if that's. I guess I'm asking the question, not sure whether you want to give an answer in this forum or not. But I think it's an important question to ask, and I think it probably could be something that could enter the public realm in terms of our overall, in terms of what we expect for a project cost per space as a viable project, and what isn't viable for the municipality to move into acquiring land for the purposes of parking. But I'll leave it to you to decide how you want to answer that.
So when staff looked at the opportunity that I presume we'll be discussing in closed session in a few minutes, we looked at some comparables for when councils had this opportunity before, and looked at the cost per parking space specifically that unfolded there. And Frank, this particular opportunity aids significantly the cost per space than what we have had in front of us before.
And I don't want to get into specifics about anything. My question is sort of a general question about an overall viewpoint that the administration might have on whenever an opportunity like this presents itself. Do you have a concept in mind of a fixed number, or at least a range of numbers which are acceptable and which isn't? And I guess my question is that something that we could define more clearly into the future, in your view?
Yes.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
That's okay. Thank you. I don't want to get specific about something that hopefully we'll get to a closed session, but since the point of the agenda item was land acquisition and, why or whatever, I think as a council and as a community, when we think of public places or spaces, it's institutional buildings, it's roads, it's parks, it's all kinds of different possibilities. It's parking as well. And, when you look back at councils of the past, decisions have been made that have left legacy opportunities in the community. Again, whether it's a road, it's a park, it's parking, or it's a building or some other asset that's been created. And I don't know who said this quote, but I wrote it down. It takes a place to create a community, but it takes a community to create a place. And I think that that's part of our role too, is to look at opportunities as they come up. And certainly, there's another side to the land acquisition. It's the disposition of land too. And I hope that at some point during this term of council, we have a very involved discussion about that angle of land as well, because certainly we have opportunities. We also own some property that probably would be a better opportunity for somebody else. So certainly, without going into great detail, I think we should be always open to the idea of land acquisition, because councils before us have, and they've created what we've inherited as community assets, and I think it is our responsibility to at least continue to consider opportunities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments? Questions? None? So there's some motions here then. I guess if there's nothing more out of that report, then there's, sorry. Leave that one right away, I guess.
So I would ask you another question then, and ask that we've tried 2 times now to discuss land acquisition, and we've had a supplementary report from Larry, and that's appreciated. And I think we know that there's plenty of policy out there. Can I ask that we look at this again in the future to try and set some additional working policy that says, as Vice Deputy Mayor Huber said, we own land and we can sell land, and we have opportunities to purchase land that complement both ends of the spectrum. And we certainly have projects coming up, recreational projects, where land could be sold, and that money, it was in lieu of parkland. We could use that money in lieu of parkland to help pay for recreational projects. So can we have a further discussion about this, regardless of what the outcome is tonight? Can we have an agenda item or a policy brought forward that speaks more specifically to what we should be doing or could be doing over the next 4 years in particular?
Yeah, for sure we can, Neil. I think where I will get hung up is I think Larry's done a very good job of identifying a whole number of plans, specifically that we've gone to the public and consulted widely on, and said these are what we want to do, and may or may not add to particular pieces of property. Where I will always get hung up on is we just I don't believe we should be buying property unless we have a very specific reason to meet some goal that we've set in some publicly approved document, because we end up, to me, I think we don't, and it doesn't say that there isn't going to be great opportunities that we shouldn't be considering from time to time. I think we do that, or we should always do that, but I think we need to have some basis to say, this is why we're doing this. It's to meet the goal in the official plan, it's to meet the goal in the downtown improvement plan, or some type of thing like that. And I think we can have that general discussion and a policy and say, here's the documents, here's the summary of the documents, and if there is other needs that we think we need that come up, and they will from time to time, and there's been some, I know I've sat around here and I've heard some great ideas about land acquisition and great uses for it, but I think we need to, we can have that discussion, but I think we need, again, go back to, we need to have a specific idea of what we want to do with it and a plan. And there's nothing wrong discussing it at any time.
To follow up then, I don't remember the circumstances, but I believe that there was a golf course in Owen Sound that was in trouble. And was it not a municipal golf course, or did it end up being, it was being contemplated? So at what point does if I get it that some properties are just not there for the taking and they don't fit. I believe this one does. Thank you.
Well, any other comments or questions? Then I have a motion that's been moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Deputy Mayor Charbonneau, seconded by Councillor Rich, that Council move into closed public session in accordance with Bylaw 100-2002 under Section 6AII to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board for strategic purposes in Southampton. All in favor? That's carried. We'll convene in the committee room. Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Matheson, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Sharp. It's been moved by Councillor Marsden and seconded by Deputy Mayor Charbonneau that Council will rise from close to public session and resume the special Council meeting. All in favour? That's carried. It's been moved by Vice Deputy Mayor Huber and seconded by Councillor Minaj that Bylaw 18-2015, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed the second day of March 2015. All in favour? It's carried. And been moved by Councillor Minaj, seconded by Vice Deputy Mayor Huber, that this special council meeting of March the 2nd, 2015, hereby adjourned at 8:32 p.m. All in favour? It's carried.